Greetings and good Monday morning, this 20th of February 2023. Still the third decade of the 21st century. It also happens to be President's Day 2023. Good Lord, we are almost done with February. Wow. February's almost done in 2023. If you're new to my channel and you're not familiar with my content, I always open up mentioning the date and specifically referencing that it's the third decade of the 21st century because I'm always amazed at what it is we're currently dealing with and talking about, and for that matter entertaining in society versus where people had predicted us to be. Something else I do on my channel is if you leave a comment, I like to read, react, and respond out loud. In which case, one of my viewers, basically my one and only loyal viewer, Stace, took the time to respond to two of my videos. So without further ado, and without further dragging this on, let's go ahead and get into it. So the first response was, I would actually assume the person who made the balloon comment was older generation, mainly because of my experience of how my mom's racism has become more predominant these days, when I don't remember her being as racist when I was growing up. I think some of the people in office, people that are being locked up too, are setting poor examples. As children, Bambi, or more to the point, Thumper, taught us if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. It feels more and more people are speaking before thinking. I just try and follow the rule of treating others as I would want to be treated. Excuse me. So essentially in one of my videos, I was also discussing an incident that took place where a high school friend of mine, who was of Asian descent, Asian origins, Asian appearance for that matter, was approached at a Dunkin' Donuts over the alleged Chinese spy balloon, and a comment was made. If you want to have a better understanding of where I come at this, obviously, as you can tell, my immutable characteristics are that of Caucasian, white. I mean, I'm a significant mixture of many different Caucasian nationalities. You know, white is perfectly fine for me. You know, it is what it is. But I had no control over that. But I feel like in the third decade of the 21st century, we've been entertaining this notion of a predominant white supremacy based society, this systemic racism versus individual accountability. Essentially, I benefit from white privilege versus my own individual accountability, versus my own hard work and labor exchanged for wages, etc. And vice versa, other people's hardships or other people's experiences, especially if they're adverse or negative, is as a result of deeply rooted systemic racism founded on white supremacy. I basically don't believe that, but you know, when stuff like this happens, I have to assume the individual that approached my friend was older white, like she was saying. As far as the whole older thing goes, I wonder if it's a matter of getting fed up, where you reach a certain age and you just start to get tired of hearing about white evil this and white evil that. I mean, Bill Burr has a little sketch where he talks about he's just sick and tired of, you know, these movies that talk about how evil white people are. They were the first all-black ping pong team. I mean, whatever. I mean, it was a joke, obviously. However, every time, you know, I feel like, you know, there's truth to back up, like, my claims and his, then some shit like this happens, and it just sets us back. Other than that, I think, like I said, I think a lot of people just get fed up with constantly hearing about it, where maybe it comes across as racism, or, you know, and Stace, I'm just curious, I'm not defending anything, I'm not advocating anything, but I often wonder if we sometimes mistake racism for just saying things that are not considered politically appropriate or politically sensitive. You know, I'll just leave it at that. I think Charlie Kirk said it best once when he was trying to answer a question with regards to statistics and incarcerations, and he was like, well, statistically, this group of people commit way more crimes than this group of people does. When you compare it statistically to the overall population of this community, then a much larger portion of this community commit crimes at a greater rate. And some people want to perceive that as racism. I don't know. But Stace, you also know your mom best, so you would know better than I, you know, in her heart, whether she's being racist, whether she's fed up, whatever the case may be. But wait, there's more. I've just been busy, so I'm sorry for the delays of commentary. Stace, no big deal. It's February 20th. I don't know when I did my last video, but I understand and I get the busyness. My book has been released, so I've been preoccupied with that as well as working on the second book. Cool. Stace, do me a favor if you can. If you happen to watch this, at the very least, can you leave a link to your book in the comments? I'd like to check it out. I think you said it is electronic. I have a Nook. I can still have online conversations with you as well as other more conservative people in my life, but unable to still converse with those that are loyal to Trump, like my mother. I feel like anyone should be able to converse with people you may disagree with, because it gives the opportunity to either change your stance or cement that stance. Before I comment on that, you know, I was thinking about the whole Trump thing the other day. I was watching something, I was listening to something, or a combination of both, and it really kind of forced me to look inward on where I stood with Trump. And I would have to say that going into the primaries, Trump would not have been my ideal candidate. At least when it came to being the president, I was like, man, you know, I really like how this guy's rocking the boat. I really like how this guy is challenging the status quo. But at the end of the day, I think we need somebody who can conduct themselves a little bit better. The one thing I did like about Trump, well, not one thing, the few things I liked about Trump. First, he wasn't part of what I would call the establishment political system. He was an outsider, and he knew you could not be a registered independent. You had to register with a party in order to get anywhere. So I really enjoyed how he rocked the boat on that particular stance. Hopefully I phrased that correctly. I also really enjoyed how through his actions and mannerisms, he was able to expose and bring and draw to the surface the hypocrisy within the media. And it's gotten to the point right now where I feel as though the major media outlets have just reached a level of just pure and unadulterated shamelessness, where it's like, yeah, you're right. We are completely and utterly biased. We will tell a story in a very specific manner that suits our socio-political needs. You're absolutely right. You called us out. We're going to own it, and we're not going to shy away from it. All right. I really love how, whether by coincidence, by design, how Trump was able to do that. You know, he was able to call out these agencies for what they were and expose them for what they were. And equally and opposite, I have to say it's a pretty ballsy move that some of these organizations have just doubled down, and they're like, yeah, we have an agenda, we have a direction, we have a goal. And I really enjoyed that. And then equally and opposite, I really enjoyed, and I say that as best as I can, I really enjoyed how he was able to kind of point out additional hypocrisy, right? Where you had to watch how the Democratic Party and or the left, the liberals, whatever, how they just responded and comported themselves. I tried doing a video a couple weeks ago where I was really fired up. I mean, my emotions were running high. And essentially, when I opened up my browser, the first tab I have is Yahoo, and the first thing was how diplomacy and civility and conduct breaks down at the State of the Union. And then the article goes on to just lambaste the Republican Party and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, really? Are you fucking kidding me, you hypocritical piece of crap? Like, I mean, talk about doubling down on your agenda, right? And I was like, so you mean to tell me the whole time Donald Trump was in office, or for that matter, Bush was in office, that the Democratic Party comported themselves and conducted themselves with the utmost in high-level conduct, and that the likes of Nancy Pelosi and whatnot, you know, performed with the utmost civility. And I really enjoyed how Trump was able to expose that. Equally and opposite, because he exposed it, so many of us started to, dare I say, wake up to the fact that it's like, my God, you know, this thing is really broken. I mean, it is really that broken. But transitioning back to what you were saying, yeah, you know, me personally, I think we as individuals are better than the two-party system. I think we're more than the two-party system. I think it's sad when individuals really break themselves down into left versus right, or right versus left, blue versus red, or red versus blue. And I think you're right. You know, talking with people you disagree with may open your ears and your mind to hearing other people's opinions, and it may change your stance, or it may cement your stance that, wow, you know, I really believe what I believe for good reason. What else did you, okay. Blah, 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 it gives, you learn more about yourself when you converse with those that disagree with you. This video just made me think of the idea of walking in someone else's shoes. No one should tell others how to act, react to situations that happen in their lives. Although I've had miscarriages, I cannot relate to others that have also had miscarriages, because how they respond to that type of situation could be drastically different than my experiences. Loss and grieving is a process that is personal to each individual and does not necessarily match with others. If something is interpreted as combative, whether as an anger response of what they are going through, if it was someone in my life, I'd remove myself from the situation until that person may need me in their life again. Again, that's just me. Yeah, so to give some people some context, right? So in the video that Stace is responding to, part of what I was talking about was an individual I work with has a lot of different things going on. One of which is their own self-medication that they freely admit to. I won't get into it, I'll just leave it alone, and how that can also have an impact on their emotions. But also, one of their personal friends from the service has been going through some stuff, and my whole point was this: while I understand having stuff going on in your personal life that is affecting you, the unfortunate truth that I had to learn the hard way, and I mean this sincerely, is when you go to work, you're expected to perform and you're expected to conduct yourself in a certain way, regardless of what you've got going on at home. Because the unfortunate truth is your coworkers don't need to be subjected to your interpersonal turmoil. If you cannot conduct yourself accordingly, that is not necessarily somebody else's burden, especially if you're conducting yourself in a manner where it is combative to your other coworkers. And that was kind of the point I was trying to make. But to Stace's point, yeah, I mean, everybody deals with things differently, but I think equally and opposite, you know, because, so in this particular instance, it's a coworker, right? So I don't really have much of a choice to remove myself from the situation if I wish to keep my job, if I wish to continue to maintain my employment. But in other circumstances, yeah, I agree. You know, case in point, and I'm not afraid to talk about it. I'm a bit of an open book, especially if it helps anybody else who stumbles upon my channel. My mom, you know, who will be gone a year this March, did not deal with loss and potentially bad information in a positive way. Upon moving out here shortly after my grandmother, her mother, died, my mom dealing with the loss of her husband, the loss of her mom, and then the move from Illinois, where she had lived for 60 plus years, to North Carolina, was a bit of an adjustment for her that she didn't handle well, and she handled it in her way. I didn't agree with it, so for the most part I kept me and my family away from her as much as possible, just because she was very difficult to deal with. Unfortunately, in this opposite situation with a coworker, the coworker is very difficult to deal with. But Stace, to your point as well, you know, it's an interesting question, because if this person is being self-destructive, it brings up so many other questions, right? So if this coworker's friend is being belligerently self-destructive, it brings up a couple of questions. Is it really a cry for attention, a selfish cry for attention, or is it really what it is? You know, really going through something, really, you know, needs help. And, you know, quite frankly, I don't know. Unfortunately, whether that individual is going through some stuff or not, some of the things, some of the decisions they've made, some of the things that they've done, make it very difficult for me to want to care. That's about all I'll say. It may sound harsh, it may sound bad, but at what point in time do we try to have empathy and allow our empathy to excuse some really bad behavior? And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with part of the reason I started this channel. We are entertaining a lot of various concepts and ideas in the third decade of the 21st century that we never used to. And part of my whole shtick is why. Normally, as a society, we come together as a society and we agree upon, as a group, what we choose to accept and what we choose not to accept. And if you're on the outside of that decision, then you need to make a choice whether you wish to conform or whether you wish to pursue life elsewhere. Part of the reason that the colonists started what we now know as the United States of America, and all of its flaws and all of its hardships and all of the mistakes made in founding this nation, they were attempting to flee what they disliked in Europe. Granted, they basically did the exact same thing to the natives that were already here and forced their will upon them. But my whole point is this, is I feel like we're entertaining a lot of concepts and we're trying to normalize a lot of concepts and we're trying to excuse a lot of really bad behavior because, oh, it's this and oh, it's that. And I guess from my perspective, to be completely honest, I don't think we should. I don't believe that we should necessarily feel the need to excuse anything. Just because you're going through something, just because you're dealing with something, I don't think that gives you the right or the permission to act poorly and conduct yourself poorly and to make some really bad decisions, and that everybody else would be like, oh, it's okay, you're going through some stuff. So both these individuals, the coworker and their friend, are making some decisions that I disagree with, and I feel as though I should be freely allowed to disagree with, regardless of whether they're going through some stuff. And that's my perspective. But you know what? I open the door to anybody else to comment. Stace, you as well. And I hope you can leave a link to your book in the comment section. But that's the whole point of this channel. So to wrap it up in about 20 minutes, I don't care if you like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I'm really only interested in trying to build bridges of communication, all right, to have these conversations. So I'm really only interested in the comments. And I promise, if you leave a comment, I will read it, react, and I will respond. And if you do, I greatly appreciate it. And you're awesome. Till next time, everybody, have a good one. Enjoy your holiday. Where is my mouse? There it is.